At the age of 7, I had a series of recurring nightmares. My parents would find me out of my bed and standing, looking out of the long, thin window that stood over the landing in the middle of the stairs of our house. The dream was always the same. There was a fire in the house. I would run out of my room calling for my mother and father, searching desperately for my brother and younger sisters. My cries were unheard, my search futile, for as I got to the window, I looked out and would see my mother, my dad, my brother and baby sisters walking away from the house. I would be shouting for them to come back to me. I would be pounding the windows with my small fists, trying to break through the barrier that separated us. I was left alone, abandoned, and terrified. My God, why have you forsaken me? These are the words that we hear Jesus utter as he hangs on the cross. And there is something deeply personal in these words of Jesus upon the cross. They still make the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The words of abandonment may connect with you at a time in your life when you have felt alone or bewildered or badly let down. The cries from the cross, the cry of fear from a 7-year-old boy, are both cries for help. For many of us, our prayers seem to be cries for help. Many of us know the way in which that prayer, "Oh God, help me," slips out of our mouth when confronted by fear or when faced with desperation and abandonment. Even if we have never experienced a moment of sheer panic and utter terror or extreme pain and loss, we know that there are very few who, when brought to the edge of such an abyss, do not respond by crying out into darkness and the space, a prayer to God. More recently, I was moved to tears by the sheer aloneness I felt. It was the first Sunday after the announcements of both government and archbishops. It was Mothering Sunday morning. I'd said my morning office earlier, and now at 10:30 I knelt to sing, pray the gospel of the day, and pray in my new space in the study. But instead I wept. I wept because I felt alone. I felt the enormity of that aloneness in the light of 32 years of experience as a deacon, when on a Sunday morning I would at this time in the morning be praying physically and worshipping physically present with other Christians. Today, Good Friday offers us a moment to dwell upon those times in our life when we have been frustrated by the silence of God. And if I'm honest, and I don't know about you, but there are times my prayers seem only to be met by silence. In the poem entitled Folktale, R.S. Thomas speaks about this reality. Prayers, like gravel flung at the sky's window, hoping to attract the loved one's attention, but without visible plats to let down for the believer to climb up. To what purpose open that far casement? I would have refrained long since, but that peering once through my locked fingers, I thought that I detected the movement of a curtain. As we look upon the body of the man who hung upon the wood of the cross, we remember that this is God. Jesus, as the second person of the Trinity, brings the human experience of suffering and death into the eternal presence of God. It is this experience that will change us, humanity, as well as God. I wonder what you make of the response from God when Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" The silence that Jesus met is the silence of God. And silence can be a beautiful and wonderful thing, a couple sitting content, each sure in the presence of the other. no words to be misunderstood or dragged up in the future with menace or regret. But silence can also be oppressive. It can leave us in a cold sweat. It can be like a heavy blanket, crushing us with its weight, blotting out the light and dulling our senses. In his poem, Via Negative, R.S. Thomas looks at this silence of God, looks into the absence that some believe is a death of God, and has this to say: "Why no, I never thought other than that God, in that great absence in our lives, that great place where we go seeking, not in hope to arrive or find." And if we follow this thought, where does it take us? R.S. Thomas goes on to say, "His are the echoes we follow, the footprints he has just left. We put our hands in his side, hoping to find it warm. We look at people and places as though he looked at them, but miss the reflection." Well, it is an answer of sorts. It is not the kind we may be used to. It is an answer that takes us into the mystery of suffering, and there in the darkness we reach out in the absence